All right, welcome back to another episode of BPL TV. I'm Liam Mucklow. With me, as always, co-host
Micah Gibbs.
All right, Micah, what are we talking about today? What rabbit hole are we going to dive down this time?
So today we're going to talk about movement screens and how you can take your players' results and provide them with a little more efficiency and some power using ground force.
Yeah, I love this because when I first started screening my golfers years ago, I had almost like this narrow lens where it was like telling me all these things I couldn't do.
Right.
And it took me a few years of, just doing it more and more and more to change my perspective to be like, actually, wait a minute. I can tweak this and I can tweak that to make it easier for him to do with whatever he's bringing to the table.
Right.
So that's ultimately what I think we want to share with people today. Okay, we got, two screens to talk about?
Two screens.
And then 2 to 3 different ways to use them in setup?
Yep.
All right, what do you want to start with?
So let's start with ankle mobility.
Ooh.
Let's take a look at that screen.
All right, here we go. So what do we got going on up here?
Yeah, so right up here we have one of the players that came through the lab. He's going through our screening process, and this is going to be our ankle inversion and eversion test.
Okay.
So basically, we want to see can they evert and invert, roll in, roll out the ankle correctly.
Right, and so when you're up here, I can see you've got him doing it one time, just kind of doing it.
And just doing it on his own.
Here where you put your hands
so
on.
basically,
What's up with that?
so we'll tell him, hey, I'm not going to put my hands on. I'm not going to stabilize. I want you to do it. Try to move your ankle outward and inward, almost as if you're trying to roll your ankle without moving the knee as much as possible. So when I see that, I'll see if they have sufficient movement. Okay. And if it looks like there's a little bit of a block, I might go in and grab to kind of stabilize and see if it's just they don't have the ability to kind of the motor patterning.
Right.
Or if it's more of the actual mobility.
That's like right here. So if you're right there, you're grabbing his knees and the ankle starts to move, then it's probably a stability issue?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and just like a lot of the screens, there's stability and then mobility.
And if it's the same with both, then we've got a mobility issue.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So then now that we've got that kind of out of the way as to what the test is, like how are you going to use that?
So this is super important. If a player doesn't have the ability to create that inversion or eversion, that's going to be a big issue in the loading pattern. So when they go to make that negative move and they can't evert the ankle, it's going to be, roll it inward. It's going to be very difficult for them to get in a real strong, powerful position.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things people want to do a deeper dive into this, you can check in the notes and go see a case study we did with Antoine Duplantis.
Right.
But we're able to look at using, pressure sensitive technology, and we saw that, he was rolling towards the outside of his foot as he, reached negative move, and that made it more difficult for him to maximize ground force production. Now, when you did the screens on him, he passed, right?
Right.
So that meant we could just like, hey, let's do this right now. And it was instant, what was it, a few miles an hour in exit velo gain?
Well, Max went up 5.
Max went up 5.
Yeah.
That matters.
Yeah, I think so.
So definitely check that out. I think one of the most commonly failed screens I've seen since we started testing athletes is definitely that ankle mobility. Right. I just think general baseball cleats don't really help with foot stability, so then the ankle's got to lock up, and it's just low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, what's next?
Let's talk about hip mobility next.
Okay, so I'll tell you what. Let's go back here. Let's hop up and just show people how you're going to do the basic screen here.
Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is have the player stand shoulder width apart.
Okay.
Okay. And once they're shoulder width apart, I want to have them take a foot, put it on the middle part of their foot perpendicular. Okay. It's almost making a T. Yeah. Okay. It's making a T so that I can see that foot width amount, and I want them to put that right foot right back where the end of their 1 foot length is.
So in 2 feet or 1 foot apart.
Yeah, it's usually going to be right about hip width.
Right on. Okay.
Yep. And then I'm going to stick a baseball bat right in between their legs.
Okay.
When they get in that position now and that bat is there right in the middle of their legs, they're just going to pick up the toe and try to touch the bat.
Okay.
With each foot.
So basically, it's like I've got 1 foot here, 1 foot here.
Right.
I'm going to try and keep the heel down.
Yep.
Can I rotate in? So what is that, about 45 degrees?
About 45 degrees. And the other thing you want to look for is watch the hip. A lot of times the hip will kind of push out. They'll push the butt back, and
so we got to
because they're overcompensating. Yeah. So if you see that, you might have to come stabilize them again. Kind of like we were talking about with ankle.
Okay.
grab the hips and help them stabilize.
All right. So what's a what would be a normal range of motion?
So usually we look for anywhere from 35, 45 degrees. If I get someone that's just about to touch it, I'm not gonna call it a pass in the actual screen, but it's sufficient enough to where they can keep a pretty standard setup with the foot.
Okay. And then so 40 to 45 ish is
Yeah.
kind of a middle ground where
Right.
we'd like to see people.
Right.
What are some of the extreme ranges you've seen?
I've seen up to almost 70, 75 degrees. A
Dang.
ton.
Holy
Yeah.
smokes.
I was like that myself.
Okay.
A
Catchers.
ton. Yeah.
Kind of weird.
Right. Usually it's the hips that are messed up.
Right.
Mine were a little too mobile, but then I've also seen people where they literally can't move it more than 5-10 degrees.
Wow. Okay.
Basically just concrete.
So, and this is where it's like, sometimes it's just you got to play with the hand you're dealt.
Right.
I got to make people better right away.
Right.
So if I got someone from 70 to like 5, now I'm way outside of the norm. What the heck do we do?
That's the funny part is we all just kind of go in the batter's box the same way,
Right.
where we could have, like you said, up to 60-degree difference
Sure.
in that mobility range. So a few of those things we can do is alter the way the foot is set up from the very get-go.
Right. So who do you want to look at first?
So-
what do you want to see?
So there's a player, Aristides Aquino, with the Reds, and I apologize if I said his name wrong if he ever watches this, but one thing you'll see here is with his foot, it's unbelievably internally rotated.
Yeah.
So it's almost facing the first baseman.
Right.
So when you're looking at this setup, that's a guy that is going to have a ton of hip internal rotation. So he's going to be closer to that 65, 70 degrees of internal rotation.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why this really, really helps is because now when he has that setup, when he starts to make his negative move, he actually feels some resistance.
Right.
Because with that type of mobility, if you were just had your foot straight up and down, you're not going to feel anything, and you're probably going to over-rotate or overload.
Well, that's like one of the biggest things I think. Obviously, you guys, you got to track a moving pitch, right? All I ever had to do was just look at the ball on the ground. So, I think about if we didn't do that, I might swivel to a point where, especially me being a right-handed batter, right-eye dominant, I'm now losing the ability to track the pitch based on cervical.
Well, and in today's game, with how explosive these pitchers are nowadays, it's so important to be quick and explosive and get everything you can out of it with as little movement as possible.
Right. All right. Well, let's take a look at the other end of the spectrum here. We'll see if we can keep this one a secret.
Yeah. So I was gonna say this one is a little bit easier to pronounce, but we'll let you guys guess in a second. But here we have a player who's actually externally rotated his foot.
Right.
So,
this one was harder to find.
Yeah, this is. So you're not going to see this very often. I would say probably less than 5% of hitters do this.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it's also because of lack of education of why you should do it.
Right.
So this is going to be more of a player that when you see that foot really sticking out towards the catcher, that means that player probably lacks mobility and needs to create a little bit more range of motion.
Right. So they're just kind of cheating away to get a little bit of something.
Yeah, just to get some
on with the
movement
lower
going,
body.
just so they get something going. Yeah.
All right. Should we show them who this is?
Anybody got any guesses? Dun dun dun. Chris Bryant.
All right.
So if you guess Chris Bryant, you are correct.
Nice one. Nice one. Okay. So let's go back. So now again, I'm trying to think. How am I gonna put this together? Okay. Why does it all matter? So ankle inversion, eversion.
Right.
Having that ability is going to give my player the load to maintain medial pressure on the trail leg as they reach negative move.
Right.
That medial pressure is going to allow for greater muscular engagement up through the quads and through the glutes to ultimately create greater ground force production.
Right.
Now, when we go and we're going to take a look at the trail hip internal rotation, I feel like we're almost trying to develop individualized foot position to allow the pelvis to be in an optimal point of rotation away from the pitcher at negative move.
Right.
And so if someone's hypermobile, I'm going to need to toe that trail foot in so their hypermobile pelvis movement now reaches that optimum spot at negative move where they can maximize power while maintaining visual acuity with the ball.
100%.
And then for someone that really has little to no mobility, I need to rotate this out help them cheat a little bit and allow them to get a little more from their lower body, even though it's kind of locked
Right.
up.
Yep.
All right. Perfect. Anything else you want to throw out there?
No.
No. All right. We'll see everyone next time where we do another. I guess explore another little rabbit hole.
Yeah.